Something just happened in Washington that could ripple straight into your life, your family, and even your wallet. The Justice Department has made a shocking announcement tied to the Epstein case, and officials say this move could reopen questions that millions of Americans thought were buried for good. This isn't just another headline scrolling across the bottom of a TV screen. This is the kind of story that makes people stop, look at their kids, and wonder what kind of system they're really living under. Because when powerful people get investigated, exposed, or protected, it doesn't stay at the top. It trickles down. It shapes the laws you live under. It affects where tax money goes. It changes which programs get funded and which ones quietly disappear. And that's exactly why this latest Justice Department move is raising eyebrows across the country. People are asking the same question tonight. Why now? Why this announcement? And what does it really mean for the people who were waiting years for answers? For families who felt the system failed them? For Americans who already feel like the rules are different depending on who you are and how much money you have? This story isn't just about one man or one case. It's about trust. It's about accountability. And it's about whether the justice system works the same for the powerful as it does for the rest of us. So stay with me, because what the Justice Department just said could set off a chain reaction that nobody saw coming. The announcement that sparked reactions. The Justice Department's latest announcement has sent shockwaves through political circles, media outlets, and social platforms alike. Officials confirmed a major development connected to the Epstein investigation, and the language used in the statement was enough to make people stop and take notice. Words like review, new information, and further action immediately triggered speculation about what could come next. For years, Americans have been told the case was closed, the story was finished, and there was nothing more to see. But this announcement suggests that may not be the full picture. And whenever the federal government reopens a chapter that seems sealed, it creates tension and uncertainty. Think about what that means for everyday people. When trust in institutions is already fragile, any sign that something big was overlooked or mishandled shakes confidence even further. And when confidence drops, markets react, political agendas shift, budgets get redirected. Programs that affect your household finances can suddenly find themselves on the chopping block. That's why this isn't just a courtroom story. It's a kitchen table story. Because when political storms start in Washington, they eventually reach your neighborhood. They affect prices, benefits, job opportunities, and even how secure you feel about the future. And now, the big question on everyone's mind is simple. What exactly did the Justice Department find that made them speak up again? Why this case never really went away? Even when headlines faded, the Epstein case never truly left the national conversation. It stayed alive in court filings, investigative reports, and quiet legal battles happening behind closed doors. Families of victims kept pushing for answers. Journalists kept digging. And lawmakers kept asking questions that never seemed to get fully resolved. For many Americans, the case became a symbol of something bigger. It represented a feeling that powerful people live by different rules, that money and connections could bend the system, and that ordinary citizens don't always get the same treatment. That's why every new development in this case hits differently. It doesn't feel like just another legal update. It feels like a test of whether the system can correct itself, a test of whether justice can still reach the top of the ladder. And when the Justice Department makes a sudden move, it tells people one thing: something has changed. Either new evidence surfaced, new pressure built, or new leadership decided to look at the case through a different lens. Whatever the reason, it sends a message that the story isn't finished. And for millions of Americans who followed this case, that's both unsettling and strangely hopeful at the same time. The political earthquake effect. Whenever a high-profile investigation resurfaces, it doesn't stay contained. It spreads. It reaches into political campaigns, congressional hearings, and even local elections. And that's exactly what experts say could happen now. Because the Epstein case has connections that reach into some of the most powerful institutions in the country: finance, politics, media, business. And when the Justice Department hints at further action, It puts pressure on everyone who was ever linked to the story. That pressure creates instability, and instability in politics often leads to sudden policy changes, spending shifts, emergency legislation, investigations, hearings, all of which can directly affect federal budgets. And when federal budgets change, your life changes. Social programs, tax rules, healthcare funding, retirement benefits. These are the things that get negotiated when Washington goes into crisis mode. So while this announcement might sound like distant legal drama, the consequences could land much closer to home than people expect. What officials are saying. According to the Justice Department's statement, the announcement centers around a renewed focus on key aspects of the Epstein investigation. Officials emphasize that their actions are part of an ongoing effort to ensure accountability and transparency. They didn't give every detail. And that lack of detail is exactly what's fueling speculation. When the government uses careful, measured language, it often means something bigger is happening behind the scenes. Some analysts believe this could signal additional charges. Others think it could involve previously sealed information. And some experts say it may even lead to congressional action. But what stands out most is the timing. The announcement comes at a moment when public trust in institutions is already under pressure. Inflation, political division, and economic uncertainty have left many families feeling vulnerable. So when the Justice Department steps forward with a statement like this, it doesn't just raise legal questions, it raises emotional ones too. People start wondering who knew what, who was protected, and why is this coming out now? The impact on public trust is the currency of any justice system. Without it, laws feel meaningless, courts feel distant, and people begin to believe the system is rigged. That's why this announcement matters so much. Because every time a high-profile case resurfaces, it reminds Americans of unresolved questions. For families struggling to pay bills, save for retirement, or keep up with rising costs, government accountability isn't just a moral issue, it's a financial one. When systems break down, money gets wasted, programs get mismanaged, and ordinary taxpayers end up paying the price. That's why people are watching this story so closely. They're not just interested in the legal drama. They're watching to see whether the system still works. And if the Justice Department follows through with meaningful action, it could restore some of that lost trust. But if it ends in silence or confusion, the damage to public confidence could grow even deeper. The media frenzy. Within minutes of the announcement, newsrooms across the country shifted into high gear. Panels were assembled. Experts were called. Social media exploded with theories, reactions, and debates. Some voices are calling this a long overdue step toward accountability. Others are warning that it could open political warfare on a scale the country hasn't seen in years. And in the middle of all that noise are everyday Americans trying to figure out what's real and what's hype. Because when stories like this break, misinformation spreads fast. Headlines get exaggerated, details get twisted, and fear can grow quickly. That's why it's more important than ever to focus on verified information and official updates. Not rumors, not speculation, just facts. What could happen next? So what comes next? That's the question everyone is asking tonight. There are several possibilities. The Justice Department could release more information in the coming weeks. Congressional hearings could be announced. Additional legal actions could be taken. Each of those steps would keep the story alive and push it further into the national spotlight. And when a story like this stays in the spotlight, it affects everything. Political strategies change, campaign messages shift, economic priorities get reshaped. In other words, the ripple effect could be massive. Why you should pay attention. You might be thinking this is just another political story, another scandal, another headline that will fade away in a few days. But history shows that major investigations often lead to major policy changes, and those changes can affect taxes, benefits, and economic priorities for years. That's why this matters to you. Not because of the drama, not because of the headlines, but because of the consequences that could follow. When the justice system moves, the economy often moves with it. Tonight's announcement is more than just a legal update. It's a reminder that no story is ever truly finished, and no system is beyond scrutiny. For millions of Americans, this case represents a deeper question about fairness, accountability, and the future of the country. And as this story unfolds, the decisions made in Washington could shape the economic and political landscape for years to come. So stay informed, stay alert, and keep paying attention to the updates that could impact your family, your future, and your wallet. Because in times like these, knowledge isn't just power, it's protection. And the more you know, the better prepared you'll be for whatever comes next.